Learning Legal Assistant, Week 17, Magic, Law, and the Wizarding World, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Welcome back to Magical Law and the Wizarding World, the series where I analyze magical law and the Harry Potter books. For this video, we will be analyzing Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. As we have learned in the two previous videos, there are two major laws that govern the Wizarding World, the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy and the Decree for the Reasonable Restriction of Underage Sorcery. Both, as with the previous two books, were broken at the very beginning of the book. In Chapter 2, Aunt Marge's Big Mistake, Harry, in front of Muggles, blows his aunt into a balloon out of anger when Aunt Marge was talking awfully about Harry's dead parents. Harry's uncle demanded that Harry bring Aunt Marge back, but Harry refused, grabbed his belongings, and left his aunt and uncle's house. In Chapter 3, The Night Bus, Harry was questioned over how he had just done serious magic, which meant he was almost certainly expelled from Hogwarts. He had broken the decree of wizarding restriction of underage wizardry so badly that he was surprised Ministry of Magic representatives weren't swooping down on him where he sat. He sat outside wondering what was going to happen to him. Would he be arrested, or would he simply be outlawed from the wizarding world? Even though Harry manages to break the decree for reasonable restriction of underage sorcery each year so far, he still understands that it is a law, and he could be punished for it. Later on in the chapter, Harry is greeted at the Leaky Cauldron by the Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge. "Oh, my dear boy, we're not going to punish you for a little thing like that. It was an accident. We don't send people to Azkaban just for blowing up their aunts." Harry was very skeptical of Fudge's response, since the year before Harry had been served with a notice notifying him that if he performs any more magic at his Muggle family member's house, then he would be expelled from Hogwarts. But Fudge told him, "Circumstances change, Harry." Later on, we learned the reason why Fudge did not expel Harry or punish him was because the Wizarding World needed to keep Harry safe, and the safest place for Harry to be was at Hogwarts. In the first chapter, Outpost, we are introduced to Sirius Black on the Muggle News Network. We learned that he was an escaped convict who was armed and extremely dangerous. Then in Chapter 3, The Night Bus, we learned that Sirius Black was a wizard who had escaped Azkaban, the wizarding prison. As stated in the book, while Muggles have been told that Black is carrying a gun, a kind of metal wand that Muggles use to kill each other, the magical community lives in fear of a massacre like that of 12 years ago when Black murdered 13 people with a single curse. In Chapter 10, The Martyr's Map, we learn more about what Sirius Black did and why he was in Azkaban. Fudge explained how nobody but trained hit wizards from the Magical Law Enforcement Squad could have stood a chance against Black once he was cornered. I was a junior minister in the Department of Magical Catastrophes at the time, and I was one of the first on the scene after Black murdered all of those people. The story of Sirius Black and him being arrested shows us once again that even the wizarding world can escape bureaucracy, as learned about even more departments in the Ministry of Magic and how they strive to keep all the wizards and witches obeying the law. Let's talk about the Wizarding World's correctional system. Azkaban is a prison guarded by Dementors. Dementors are first introduced to us in Chapter 5, abruptly entitled The Dementor, when Dementors were described as being on the Hogwarts Express looking for Sirius Black. Remus Lupin described Dementors in Chapter 10, The Martyr's Map, quote, "Dementors are among the foulest creatures that walk this earth. They infest the darkest, filthiest places. They glorify decay and despair. They drain peace, hope, and happiness out of the air around them. Get too near to a Dementor, and every good feeling, every happy memory will be sucked out of you. If it can, the Dementor will feed on you long enough to reduce you to something like itself, soulless and evil. You will be left with nothing but the worst experiences of your life, and you will just be an empty shell that lost its soul." So what would you equate Dementors to in our world? A really intense, deathly serious combination of the Homeland Security and the FBI? In Chapter 11, The Firebolt, we are first introduced to legal proceedings of a sort in the magical world. Back in Chapter 6, Talons and Tea Leaves, Draco Malfoy has gotten too close to Hagrid's hippogriff and gotten hurt. His father, Lucius Malfoy, brought the incident to the Ministry of Magic. In Chapter 11, Hagrid receives a letter which reads, "We must register our concerns about the hippogriff in question. We have decided to uphold the official complaint of Mr. Lucius Malfoy, and this matter therefore be taken to the Committee of the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures. The hearing will take place on April 20th, and we ask you to present yourself and the hippogriff at the committee's offices in London on that date." So the Wizarding World holds hearings. Hermione reassures Harry by saying, "You'll have to put up a good, strong defense, Hagrid. I'm sure I've read about a case of hippogriff baiting where the hippogriff got off. I'll look it up for you, Hagrid, and see exactly what happened." This shows us that precedent and law exists in the Wizarding World. I might even say it's safe to assume that the Wizarding World uses common law, like England and 49 of the other United States. There is other evidence later in the book that further suggests the Wizarding World might follow common law principles. When it is revealed that Harry, Ron and Hermione went to the library the next day and returned to the empty common room laden with books that might help prepare a defense for Buckbeak the Hippogriff. The three of them sat in front of the roaring fire, slowly turning the pages of dusty volumes about famous causes of murdering beasts, which speaking occasionally when they ran across something relevant. In Chapter 15, the Quidditch final, we learn that Hagrid lost the case and that the Hippogriff had been sentenced to death. In Chapter 16, Professor Trelawney's prediction, we learn that Hagrid has lost his appeal. In Chapter 18, Moody, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs, we learn how the Ministry of Magic keeps tabs of people who are an amangist, someone who can turn into an animal. I found this particularly interesting because it reminds me of watch lists, no-fly lists, and other such lists we have in the United States, where the government keeps tabs on people that they find pose or could pose a particularly great threat to others. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban shows us that the Wizarding World is a world of laws. There are hearings, precedents, and law, appeals, judgments, jails, prison guards, magical law enforcement, and more that are similar to our world and government. Join me next week for Magical Law in the Wizarding World and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.